Hey there, Uniwarriors! EnnuiGoblin here, once again bringing to you the latest in Uniwar action. At long last, here we are at the Uniwarriors $1,000 solo tournament final match between Needle and EVR1022. It has been quite a tournament. So many competitive players have come here. A lot of upsets in this tournament as well. EVR1022 picking up two big upset matches first against Phobos in round 8, and then against Kroger in round 9 for the semifinals. Here to play for $500, and of course, the returning champion, Needle. And Needle, former world champion, and just by virtue of his titles, I'd say he's the favored player in this match. Not heavily favored. EVR1022, he may be a relative newcomer compared to Needle, but he's showing that he has skill to take on very well-established players and bring a breath of fresh air into the game. So I'm really, really keen on seeing who's going to win out on this series of matches here. I'm not going to speak too much more about these players. I think I've said enough of what there is to say in this tournament already. Instead, let's take a look at our map here. It is going to be played on Small Island 2.0. It's going to start with an initial credit count to 300 credits, 50 credits per base, giving you a natural credit count of 250 credits once all natural bases have been captured. Credits are going to be a particularly important component on such a small map, particularly since this is a mirrored up KvK match. And absolute resource management will definitely be a major key for such a setup on this map. It looks like the second player is going to get the 300 credit plus an additional 150 to start. That keeps it from being too much of an advantage. I'd say if the second player got the full 350 to start, then it would be way too large an advantage. I think that 150, though, is going to give player 2 the ability to set the tempo on this map, just because he can start with the Garuda right away. The first player, his only option is to wait and save and go Garuda, or go immediately into Swarmer. And the problem is that if you go Swarmer turn 1 and then player 2 goes Garuda turn 1, you're already in a position where you're going to find the Garudas. If you go Swarmer first here, Garudas starting here can push up a little bit closer onto this map, maybe up onto this tile. And then even if you go Garuda on the second turn, you're going to be if you go Swarmer first, you won't be able to afford the Garuda, so you have to immediately go back into Swarmer just to keep pace and tempo. And that allows for a Garuda-Swarmer combination, which is generally going to be a little stronger than its double Swarmers. And it's going to force you in a position where you have to move back. So the player really has to consider, the first player has to consider, do I want to go Swarmer first and let player 1 set the tempo and have the slight material advantage, or sorry, do I want to set the tempo and let player 2 have a material advantage, or do I want to let player 2 set the tempo and then I keep up with his material advantage, but my round 1 first player advantage kind of goes out the window as a result. The other thing to really watch for, considering that this is going to be a KvK match, is the way that these strike zones are going to be set up with these units. So when I say strike zones, I mean it's really going to come down to what unit composition each player elects to go for, how they manage their credits, and positioning your Garudas in front of your Swarmers and your weaker units in the back. I don't know if, I don't think we're going to see too much variation away from Air Forces in this game, as the map is a little bit small, so I think the Air Forces with the low credit counts that this map is giving is going to make the most sense in the long term. You could expect to see an underling or two used as meat shields later on in the game, maybe especially if they can get to these two tiles in the center. They provide very effective shields, and it forces the enemy to draw away a unit or two to deal with that. But other than that, I expect to see mostly air, and if it is going to be that, it's about positioning your Garudas. Let's say like you want a Garuda up in the front, and then your Swarmers up in the back, and you want to create zones where if all of your units are able to strike and attack within the same area, and that keeps by keeping your Swarmers clumped up and a line of your Garudas, you can create those zones very effectively. And it's about who can get the most effective first strike. The first strike is everything in these types of matches. So with all that said, let's get this match underway. Playing on the left-hand side as the Blue Khralians, the returning champion, Needle. And playing on the right-hand side as the Red Khralians, his challenger, EVR1022. Let's get this game underway here. Needle Gonna be making his first two solidifications. Is he gonna go for the Swarmer or wait up for the Garuda? It looks like he's gonna pass up and save for the Garuda instead. Needle now, EVR now opening up with his Garuda, and there's Needle's first Garuda as well. EVR gonna push his Garuda up into the center and try and push back, but a second Garuda popping up from Needle, and EVR electing to push his two Garudas back up to the top. Needle now deciding to use this opportunity to take his two Garudas up into the center, and EVR once again taking a second retreat onto his side. But the third Garuda is going to come up, and this might cause Needle to push back just a little bit. Needle now bringing his line around, and up comes the first Swarmer of the game, and that's going to be a very nice wall around it. It looks like EVR electing to go for a fourth Garuda here instead of the Swarmer variation, but that might put him behind on the credit counts later on. Now a Swarmer coming up for EVR as well. Needle now bringing up his fourth Garuda to even up the score. EVR continuing to set the tempo with a second Swarmer now. And it looks like Needle is going to bring his line of Garudas all the way down to the bottom ocean tiles. He's got a straight line. It's going to be hard to attack that line, but it's also going to be difficult for Needle to use that line to make its own attack. It's going to be a little bit inefficient, but he's now pulling them back and making a little bit more of a consummate V formation with those Garudas, bringing his Swarmer up here. And now here comes EVR making a slight push with these two Swarmers, and he must be planning to bring those Garudas up in front of them a little bit. No, it looks like he's going to bring the Garudas up to the top and leave a line of Swarmers in the center for a possible strike zone. Here comes Needle now, pushing those Garudas a little bit out of the striking distance of all those Swarmers, and especially, and out comes the Worm from Needle, and that's a very interesting choice. That could be a dangerous choice for both players. That Worm capable of doing huge damage on the air units. He can do 8 or 9 shots against the Swarmers, 7 or 8 shots against the Garudas, so he'll be a fantastic finisher, but Needle now has to be extremely careful about making sure that that Swarm is protected, and it's going to limit his ability to have mobility on all of the units. The Worm acts as an anchor with a cannon on it almost. But it looks like Needle getting a very nice surround around the Worm, and it looks like EVR not going to be able to get the strike he wants on it, even if he could send. I don't think he can reach it with any of those Swarmers just yet. Electing to pull back the Swarmers more and continuing to build the Swarmer. It looks like he's going for about 2 Swarmers to every 1 Garudas in his army composition, and I think EVR has the striking, has the damage advantage in terms of material. But he has to be very, very careful about not letting those Swarmers get hit, because the Swarmers have a lot less defense. I think EVR has more DPS with his army, but a lot less defense. And so that's going to make how this first strike goes all the more critical. Needle now continuing to jockey around these center troops, pushing the Swarmers a little bit more towards the center, keeping the Worm down at the bottom left as well. Here comes EVR now, continuing to push more troops up to the top. He's keeping all the Swarmers out in the back. Not a bad decision. He doesn't want those Garudas to get any distance. And here comes the first strike from EVR. He's going to get good strikes, but it looks like he's going to have to divert at least 2 Swarmers to deal with the underling meat shield. And here comes the Garudas doing big 7 shots, but I'm not sure if he's going to get that many kills. He might be able to take out those 2 Swarmers, but will that be enough? The other Garuda is now going to have to be used for cleanup instead of doing initial damage. And so I feel like when you take a full health Garuda and attack a 3 health Swarmer, don't think of it as doing, I don't know if it's necessarily doing 3 damage so much as it's losing a potential 4 damage it could be doing on another full health Swarmer. Pushing up the rest of his troops in the back, electing not to attack with everything right away, and here comes the counter from Needle. EVR does have a very nicely formed line of Garudas, of those 3 Garudas on the left there, but the Worm is going to be able to make short work of it, pulling a 7 shot, and a 3 health Swarmer now going to be able to do some cleanup on that 1 health Garuda. And it looks like the credit kill has been evened up, and I believe Needle's going to be able to get an advantage on the credit kill this turn. And I don't know if EVR did the damage he needed to on that first strike. Needle has so many full health Garudas to take strikes. Another Swarmer going down with a 7 strike, and that's 4 Swarmers have been taken down from a full health to a 3 health. And now EVR has a lot of units that can do damage in the same position, but only so many of these full health Swarmers to do the initial rounds of damage. He will pick up a Garuda kill, evening up the kill count score. EVR might even be able to make the count score in his favor this turn, but he's going to find himself running out of firepower very quickly as these four... He does have those 4 full health swarmers, but he expected coming into this round with at least 5 or 6 full health swarmers, and that would have been all the difference. Let's see how much damage he can pull off here, though. Gonna pull... Is he going to be able to use swarmers only for this one Garuda death? That might be huge. Another 3-shot on it, and it looks like it will go down, and this full health swarmer going to have to be diverted to do the cleanup. And now... EVR pulling up on 700 credits in the kill count score. Will that be enough? The worm can do a lot of damage here. Needle now has to really make sure that he's evening up the credit kill, if not pulling ahead with this shot. Down goes another Garuda from EVR, and Needle now pulling a little closer up to his goal. The worm gonna finish, and now the credit kill score count has been even up to 14 to 1400. Needle going to be looking to use these Garudas to bully around these full health swarmers in the back. These swarmers are very exposed to these attacks. Another full health swarmer taking a 7-shot here. Needle going to be able to replenish this army with yet another swarmer in the back as well. EVR trying to retreat some of these 3 health swarmers. Is he going to pull a healing unit up in that position? That might not be a bad move. He could get some very serious heals on it. He does have the 300 for the sealing unit. I think that's exactly what he's going to go for. Pulling a few swarmer kills. Going for a suicide swarmer to get the bonus shot. And there goes the 3-shot on that Garuda. And I think it should be just enough to kick it down. And EVR once again barely pulling ahead, but getting a 200 crit kill advantage. And opting not to go for the healer. Instead willing to go for another swarmer. He needs the DPS output instead of a heal. And I mean... I can see the logic in that. I think a healer would have been an interesting position, but how long would it really have stalled this force from Needle? Needle now going to look to take out some more of these fuller health swarmers, and EVR, he needs a Garuda. He needs at least one Garuda to catch up here. And here comes the base capture threat from Needle, and that's going to put a lot of pressure. Look at all these swarmers don't even have full health, and what little he has, he's going to have to focus fire down this underling to make sure that it doesn't get that base capture this round. And that's a lot of diverted damage from EVR, having to focus fire all of these. And here comes the healing unit from EVR. I feel like it's a little too late, though. Well, no, that's not true. He's bringing up this turn instead of last turn. And I take that back. He actually, this was exactly the turn he should have brought the healer up. It's just, will the healing ability be enough? That's the question. And is the healer even going to be able to survive? It looks like Needle is opting to focus fire it down instead, not wanting EVR to get an opportunity to catch his breath on those swarmers. And Needle now starting to steamroller with the damage, pulling a very decisive lead. Here comes yet another base capture, and it looks like Needle's going to be able to pull the GG very soon here. And there's the GG! Wow! And it looks like the worm strategy did pay out for Needle in the end. I really enjoyed that. This was a very fun KvK. And we'll take a look at it in the post-game analysis, but I think what it really boiled down to was EVR's first strike just didn't get exactly the amount of damage I think he needed. I think he needed at least another unit, but let's take a look here. And if we take a look at our post-game analysis here, I think there were 2 really critical rounds in this game that I want to take a look at. Round 9 and round 15. If we take a look at round 9 first, this is where right before Needle decides to go for that worm decision, and let's take a look at Needle's decision to do so and how EVR has to try and respond to that. Because at this point here around 9, Needle's got he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Garudas and a Swarmer, whereas EVR's opted for 4 Garudas and 3 Swarmers. And so EVR's up on the material because he's got the tempo. And Needle's response should probably be... EVR's expecting Needle to go for another Swarmer to keep pace. And instead, as he's taking... He pushes his Garudas into this consummate V to create the strike zone into this center area right here. So now this whole area is a strike zone that EVR has to keep out of. But it gives a couple of leeway spaces right here for EVR to work with. And then EVR's trying to look for, well, what's he going to buy on this round? And what does he buy? Nothing. He keeps the same count. And you can bet that EVR is able to use the undo turn to get a scout on all of this back line. And he's counting this and saying, well, why isn't he going? What is he saving up for? And so then you have the EVR is going to make a decision. Is he saving up to go for the worm, or is he trying to pick up the extra Garuda? And, I mean, both require different responses, I'd say. For the worm, you might want to try and push it a little bit to the center and catch him off guard. But for the Garuda, you might want to push back a little bit. It's a difficult call. And then, sure enough, next turn, out comes the worm, and EVR manages to push up his Garudas up to the top, keep his swarmers up into the center here, so that they've got his strike zone kind of looks a little bit like this, at about this region right here. And what he wants to do is try to inch forward and bring that strike zone a line closer every turn, as this worm is trying to anchor down everybody's movements, because his Needle has to keep it protected. But if we look at round 15, as the game progresses, Needle manages to do a very good job of keeping this worm in a position where he can get to this space or this space and get fantastic range all around this area right here. In fact, where's his maximum range fallout? So if he's got the 3-shot, this would be his max line right here. That's a pretty far reach with a potential 9-shot on your swarmers on an army that's this heavily composed of swarmers. And the problem with this swarmer line is I think, once again, I said so in the match, I believe that EVR had the higher amount of damage per unit. Overall, I think EVR is capable of doing more damage, but these swarmers in the back are handicapped by their inability to get any further than this line. That means that their attack line caps out right here, and it gives Needle a very comfortable working space to continue to build up. And I feel that with this amount of Garudas that Needle's been able to come up with, that the longer this match goes on, the more in favor it swings in Needle, just because Needle has the heavier hitters in his army. So EVR decides, it looks like EVR tried to make a decision where I'm in a position where I need to make an attack happen before Needle's able to find a footing with the superior firepower, with the superior heavy hitters, I should say. The Garudas are really good at striking against these swarmers. And then the other thing to really watch out for on round 15 is if we take a look at these underlings. These underlings are also a pretty important component for why EVR, I think, had to make this decision now. This underling pops out here, and then another underling pops up right there at the end of the turn as Needle's other purchase choice. And what EVR cannot allow Needle to get is to bring this underling up to this tree and this underling up to this tree, and then suddenly he's got a really, really overpowered meat shield for these Garudas to come up to this position here, and suddenly these Garudas can't get to the Garudas behind the underlings, and suddenly Needle's strike zone becomes a lot more far-reaching. So I think that's also what might have forced EVR's hand. The problem is that this underling is already developed in front. And so EVR has to divert at 2 of his swarmers to deal with this problem. Look, there's one swarmer right here. There's another Garuda goes up for another swarmer attack, and then another swarmer comes out. That could have been an entire unit's worth of damage. I do like EVR's decision to go for the wall here. I think this was a really interesting decision to go for the Garuda wall and then bring all of his swarmers and Garudas to take a secondary strike zone. But I don't know if it paid out, as Needle was just able to produce a slightly higher amount of damage every round after that round. Well, not every round, but he was able to match it in round 16, and then in round 17, that's when he was able to start pulling hits a little heavier than Needle. The worm played a big role in that, and by getting such large hits on these Garudas and Swarmers. He was just such a powerful finisher. There's really nothing that a worm and a swarmer, a full health swarm and a full health swarmer can't take out in terms of Khralian air forces. So with that said, that's round 1. What an exciting match. Still another to go now, and we'll see who comes out on top for the $500 prize. The first match is going to go to Needle, and we'll see you in Game 2 of the series. Until then, this is EnnuiGoblin signing off.